I'm sure you know this feeling. You're playing the right notes, the arpeggios, chromatic passing notes, but it still doesn't sound like jazz, even when you play a lick that you transcribed from one of your favorite jazz guitarists. The 3 things that I'm covering in this video, and especially how they tie together with the last exercise, are things that you need to develop if you want to sound like jazz when you improvise. My name is Larsen, learn jazz, make music. When I'm giving feedback to the students in my course, the Jazz Guitar Roadmap, then this is one of the most common things that I have to point out. But it's also a thing that you can easily fix and very quickly makes you sound a lot better. Jazz is about rhythm, and what most people don't think about is that when you solo, then each note has 2 points of rhythm, and they are both important. What I mean is that a note is placed somewhere in the bar. That's the first part of the rhythm, but the other part of the rhythm is also going to make or break how it sounds. Where does it end? How long is that note? When you're playing a jazz solo, then this is especially important at the end of a phrase. And most guitar players have a very bad habit. You always end on long notes, mainly because you probably spend a lot of time practicing to play legato and having a beautiful sustain. And once you can do that, then you don't think about it. And if you compare that to this, then I'm sure you can hear the difference. And this is really easy to fix. Take a song that you know really well, start soloing, and just keep it simple and easy to play. Focus on not letting notes ring at the end of the phrase and just tighten it up a bit. Of course, there are many times that you want to let a note ring at the end of a phrase, but you should train yourself to hear the phrase and then play what you hear, and that decides whether it's a long or a short note at the end. It should not just be a habit of letting notes ring because you don't really think about it. Practicing like this will break that bad habit, and there's also another way of getting this skill into your playing, but I'm going to return to that later in the video. It's impossible to think about that if I also have to think about the chords and the scales and the arpeggios. This is a response that I've gotten quite often from students in real lessons and also online. And it is of course true that when you're using a lot of energy to come up with the line that you want to play, it's very difficult to also worry about the rhythm. But you can develop this skill if you approach it in the right way, and it's both not that difficult and something that really will improve how your solos sound. What I'm talking about here is ending phrases on the offbeat, which is in fact how we got to the name bebop. Bebop. So the whole thing is in fact named after how we end phrases on the offbeat, bebop, making the whole thing a little bit more light and a little bit more rhythmical. Another similar part of phrasing is a little bit more complicated, but I'll also give you some really good exercises for that right after this. There are 3 different ways that you can work on ending phrases like this. Start with a simple song or progression that you know very well, maybe a blues or an easy standard. Then practice playing short phrases that end on the offbeat. Keep it simple and short so that you have the energy to focus on the rhythm. You can also try to learn some bebop themes and then try to take over rhythms from them. You can take most bop themes and turn them into great exercises in this way. And they are anyway really useful to check out and have in your repertoire. Let's take the beginning of Au Prévave. And you can take that and use it as a motif in a solo like this. You can also use a solo that you transcribed and then take a lick that's a short and clear example and work on making variations on that, like this Wes lick. Now Wes is great for this because he often plays shorter phrases, he's very motivic, and he has excellent taste in rhythm. You can move this around on a blues as well, and like the other exercises, this will teach you how to hear the right type of phrases, and in that way it will begin to become a part of how you play. Learning phrasing was something that I found really difficult and I spent a lot of time on when I was studying. And that's also one of the reasons why I'm making this video, because there are exercises that you can check out. There are just not that many people talking about it, but it is always useful to have a few different ways to approach this so that you can improve that in your playing, even though it seems unclear what it is that you have to learn. Before I got into jazz, I remember one night when I was a kid going from channel to channel on the TV and ending up watching some random jazz guitar concert. And and it sounded like endless rows of eighth notes weaving through the song.
Welcome to Jazz Club.
I have no idea what or who I was watching at the time, but I found it fascinating that anybody wanted to play like that, and I was really aware that they really wanted it to sound like that.
Great.
But there's a lot more to a great jazz solo than just playing long eighth note lines. Not all eighth notes are created equal, and not all melodies are created to be great jazz lines. So how do you learn this? There is one rule which isn't really a rule, it's more of a guideline, and you can use that to find notes that you can add accents to. Remember that I said it wasn't a rule. A note can get an accent if it is not on the beat and higher than the next note in the line. So you want to learn to make melodies that have high notes on the offbeat. Now, a consequence of this guideline is also that if you're playing a descending melody, then you can pretty much choose whatever note that you want to give an accent, as long as it's on an offbeat. Before you start turning your solos into real-time Sudoku solving, then you could also just ease into it by going through some simple exercises that really help you hear phrases like that. You can use these exercises as blueprints, trying to make different versions of them and fit them onto other chords. Make sure to especially check out the last one, which is a must-know melodic technique for playing bebop. This is a basic arpeggio melody. I'm using the arpeggio from the 3rd E minor 7. But it will work for a C major 7 arpeggio as well. This way of playing the arpeggio gives you a natural accent on the one hand. Here I'm playing a descending C major triad and then adding a scale note above the 5th to have a note that I can give an accent. The triad from the 3rd can also be played so that it creates a nice accent on the 2 hand, like this. And of course, a lesson on jazz and bebop phrasing would not be complete without an example of octave displacement. The honeysuckle rose or octave displaced C major 7 arpeggio in this exercise gives you a great accent and change of direction on the 2 hand, which makes the line much more interesting as a melody. The thing that you must develop to improve your phrasing is to hear the right melodies that can be phrased in the right way. Now, besides these exercises, then a great way to really dive into this is to learn solos by ear. And this is simply just because when you're working on learning a solo, then you really listen intensely to that and you learn the phrases, and you also start to absorb not only the lines but really also the phrasing and the timing. So working on that is a great way to improve your phrasing. The most important thing that I wanted to take away from this video is that the phrasing depends on the melody, and you need to learn to play the right type of melodies in your solos if you want to play with better phrasing. Bebop is one of the clearest examples of this, and if you want to play better bebop melodies and really nail that beautiful jazz phrasing, then check out this video on the bebop secret, which will teach you how to use octave displacement in your solos in many different ways that all work great for your phrasing.